wasallam. Now, can you imagine we are now in Surah Al-Baqarah verse number 120, right? As it is, we are still discussing about the children of Israel. So far from verse number 40 onwards, right? It is all continuously discussing about children of Israel, right? And that clearly shows the importance of you and I trying to understand what did they do, how much disobedience they did, how much ungratefulness to Allah they had, and compared to now 2020. And you and I, we need to really look into it and analyze ourselves, right? Whether we are in the same category, right? Well, for me personally, his history always repeats itself. So whatever they did in terms of disobedience, in terms of ungratefulness, I mean, it's all repeated in 2020, isn't it true, right? In one of the Muslim countries. And sadly, right, we have among the richest Muslim people, richest people in the world among the Muslims, right? And some of the richest countries in the world. But at the same time, just next to the Muslim countries, the richest countries, were also some of the worst people in the world in terms of the sufferings and the poverty, right? Yemen is a good example, and subhanallah, if you see how the people are suffering now, right? Something in which we need to wake up, because as I said before, I only see this COVID-19 pandemic as a punishment from Allah from what we have not done, right? And if we continue to ignore Allah's signs and Allah's punishments, I mean, I think it's going to get worse, as it is, right? China already recorded another pandemic, isn't it true? Small one, right? In terms, I think was it a bird flu or China flu, something like that, right? Taken.
The fish flew in like a red salmon, they were saying, salmon.
Yeah. Again, originating from the animals and all this, right? So if we continue to ignore Allah's punishments as it is, and just because we may not be affected by it, then we have to prepare for the worst things coming to us, right? And this is something in which, that's why we go to the Quran, we went through all these different examples, we explain, right, about the various stories that we have encountered, subhanallah, so that we at least we get some lessons from it, right? And this is something in which you and I, we have to try and inshallah understand, right? So let's go to Surah number 2 first, verse number 20, right? أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم ولن ترضى عنك اليهود ولا النصارى حتى نتبع ملتهم قل إن هدى الله هو الهدى ولئن اتبعت أهواءهم بعد الذي جاءك من العلم ما لك من الله من ولي ولا نصير. Never will the Jews nor the Christians, and this is quite important, right? This is not about trying to discriminate other people. I mean, the Jews and the Christians. It's not. This is what Allah informed you and I, right? And we must be very cautious, right, when we come across them, right, in terms of that they will not be happy, right? We pleased with us until we follow their religion. And this is what Allah said, never will the Jews nor the Christians be pleased with you, right, till you follow their religion. Say, verily the guidance of Allah, that is the only guidance. And if you, as Muhammad were to follow the Jews and the Christians' desires after what you have received of knowledge, then you would have against Allah neither any wali nor any helper, right? So Allah has warned you and I, and this is what I don't understand, right? Coming from Singapore and all this, that yes, of course, there are, should I put it, a lot of religious harmony, right, in Malaysia, Indonesia, Singapore, but brothers, that there is a limit on how we should treat them. All of them, of course, can be our friends, but not any more than that, right? Now Allah has warned us I think in Surah number 5. Let's take Surah number 5, in verse number 551, right? 551. And this is again a very direct command from Allah. You do not need to have any scholars interpret for you. I mean, this is what Allah says as it is. And when Allah said what it is, when we hear, we should obey. Isn't it? Sami'na wa ata'na. Again, we must not be like the Jews, right? Or the Bani Israel who said Sami'na wa ata'na, we hear and we disobey, right? So in Surah number 5, verse number 51, right? Allah clearly state, يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تتخذوا اليهود والنصارى أولياء بعضهم أولياء بعض ومن يتولهم منكم فإنه منهم إن الله لا يهدي القوم الظالمين. Oh, you believe. So when Allah says, oh, you believe, you and I, we must pay attention. Because what comes after this is something which Allah has commanded us to do, or Allah has forbidden us to do something, right? Take not the Jews and the Christians as awliya. Now this, you have to be careful about certain translations of the Quran, right? I mean, I like Muhsin Khan, because Muhsin Khan would leave awliya as it is, right? Some, and I'm sure if you read like Yusuf Ali, all right, they would dilute the meaning of awliya to friends. Allah did not say do not take the Jews and Christians as friends, right? Allah said do not take the Jews and Christians as awliya. Awliya is more than friends, like somebody whom you consult if you are sad, you want advice. And I'm talking about the deen, right? I'm not talking about things that in your professional life. So if you're a doctor, you want to consult the consultant and all this, while Christians and Jews, of course, is different, right? But I'm talking about the deen in terms of your way of life and all this, right? There are guidelines, right? Because Allah said not just not to take them as awliya, which is protectors and helpers, right? They are but awliya of each other. They are the one who help each other, and especially in those early days against the Muslims, right? And listen to the next part. And if any amongst you take them as awliya, then surely he is one of them, right? Verily Allah do not guide the people who are the zalimun, the wrongdoers, right? So do be careful in this, because it is very clear guideline, right? How would your Christian friends or the non-Muslim friends advise you if you are sad and you go to them, oh, I have problems at all with my families, right? My mom is not happy with me. I got problem with my wife, right? How would the non-Muslim friends advise you? Do you agree? Everybody, do you agree with me? What I say?
Yes.
Right? And even, right, the Muslims, right, it's not just about Ali, Muhammad, Abdullah. There are certain criteria even Allah has set for Muslims to be awliya. Again, this is in same chapter number 5 in verse number 55. Right, and Allah, we discussed this many times, right? Innama waliyukum wa rasuluhu walladina amanu alladina yuqimuna as-salah wa yutuna az-zakah wa hum raki'un. Verily your wali is a singular of the awliya, singular. Your wali is none other than Allah, His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the believers. The believers is it's not just Khadija, it's not just about Aisha, it's not about Muhammad, Ahmad, right? There must be a criteria. You and I know, right? Not all of your Muslim friends are practicing. And as long as they don't do these 3 things, they should never be your awliya, right? What are these 3 things? That they perform as-salah. Aqimis salah is not just about it's not just about, okay, doing prayer. As long as you do a prayer, is even though the sun is about 7 o'clock, has risen so high, and every day these people may be missing the prayers, they have not fulfilled the criteria of the Aqimis Salah, right? So it's not just about performing the prayer, it's about having khushu', about doing it on time, especially the early stated time. It's about doing prayer for the brothers, inshallah, outside COVID-19, of course, in the mosque, right? And in congregation, as I said, right? And this then fulfills the criteria of aqimis salah, not just about doing salah, right? So again, the English word, so the Arabic word, if you know the meaning behind it, it's not just to translate with one English word. It's not just perform salah, must fulfill all the criteria of salah. All right? This is the first criteria. The second one is about zakat, right? Those who are contributing to the zakat. Do you think that a lot of Muslims are not paying zakat? Brothers?
Yes, yeah.
I think it's a lot, right? And do be careful, right? So for example, right? Now, zakat is obligatory. It is not a sunnah. It is the poor, those 8 categories in Surah number 9 verse number 60, right? Those people, it is an entitlement, and this is, brothers, this is what we must not have. We must not have this attitude, oh, because I'm so kind, right? I give to you. It's not. It is their entitlement of the money, in which nothing that we have in our account is from us. It is from Allah. Right? So that is why we have been taught, right? For example, in Surah Al-Kahf, right? About the 2 gardens, right? When we come across the example, this is an example, of course, is when the person has a lot of gardens, right? With streams flowing, right? He should say, what should he say?
MashaAllah.
And one more phrase. La quwwata illa billah. Isn't it true? Right? So when you apply in your life, it's the same thing, right? Brothers, when you have a car and people are not driving, like poor people like me not driving, when you enter your car, you should say the same, right? MashaAllah, la quwwata illa billah. Allah given me the car, right? Even when you look at your account, you're checking your balance. Alhamdulillah, we have some balance in our account, right? And then we should say, MashaAllah, la quwwata illa billah. So you need to apply it to your daily lives. So not just read Al-Kahf and just end like that. Oh, this is about this people with gardens. It's not just about people with garden. It's about you and I having these lives, right? For example, even when I enter this house, alhamdulillah, we have a house to live under, right? We can also say, MashaAllah, la quwwata illa, because it is only through Allah that we live in this house, that we have a roof to stay. Isn't it true? You go to the in the Bangladesh with Rohingyas, right? You go to Syria, you go to Yemen. A lot, I'm talking about tens of millions of people are not having any roof under their head and above their head, and this is something in which we have to thank Allah. Isn't it true? Right? So again, coming back to the zakat, the criteria of a awliya, right, besides salah, is zakat. And I have to emphasize again, right, it is not because you are so nice and you're so kind, that's why you give the zakat. It is the entitlement of the poor who deserve the 8 criteria of zakat. It is their entitlement. Okay, so it is very important to understand this, right? And the last one, 5 verse 55, and those, the other raki'un. Raki'un are those who submit themselves in obedience to Allah, right? So if those Muslims do not meet this criteria, then they are not your awliya, right? You cannot insist on, yeah, but they're so nice compared to other Muslim people in the mosque. But don't we know that Allah knows the unseen, right? When Allah imposed something on you and I, right, we have to really obey, right? Because I know people came to me and say, oh yes, but I have these Christian friends, I have these Jewish friends, they're so nice. Of course, so nice, inshallah. You need to make friends with them so that, because through your own characters, through your own da'wah, inshallah, they will be attracted to Islam. Isn't it true? Right? That is the purpose of your friendship with those non-Muslims in order, inshallah, for them to be attracted to Islam. Right? But beyond that, you have to be careful. Right? Because Allah did say, right, just now as I said, if you are taking in the verse we discussed just now in verse number 51, Surah number 5, if you take the Christians and the Jews as your awliya, you are one of them. As simple as that. Right? Now, so this is important for who are we supposed to pick as our good friends, those whom we seek help to talk to in terms of your free time and all this. Isn't it nice to mix with, talk to somebody that, you know, I'm not talking about 24 hours a day talking about Islam. Of course, we can talk about football, we can talk about whatever there is halal, right? But isn't it nice once in a while that you have this conversation with people and there's, oh, you know, this mosque, the imam is like this, it's very nice mosque, right? Let's go to the mosque and all this. Sorry, Chan?
No, I said Liverpool. You could talk about Liverpool.
You never walk alone, yeah? So, yeah, of course. So, and this is important, right, brothers? And I'm sure certain people in your life, right? Completely, when you mix with them, your iman may even drop, isn't it true? And this is something in which, if either we are strong enough in our iman to give advice or give da'wah to them, or if you're not strong, then completely avoid them. And this is very important. And I know some of my students, right, who have changed in terms of their deen and all this, alhamdulillah, right? They did say, right, they have to leave completely their friends behind, right? I remember one of my students, also a revert, right, used to be in a rock band and all this, play for Glastonbury, right? And for him, he need to completely cold turkey, leave behind that kind of lifestyle, because if not, it's always this, you know, with music and all this, it always involves women, alcohol, drugs, usually it's neutral, right? Especially when they go to all these places, right? Weed and all this, right? So do be careful in terms of who your awliya is, right? Any questions regarding this? Everybody clear? Okay. So let's come back. Sorry, Adam.
No, I say yes, Sheikh. Yeah, it's very clear. Yeah.
Okay, alhamdulillah. Right. So turn back to Surah number 2, verse number 120. All right. Now, so Allah did say, yeah, about the Jews and the Christians again, and especially in those days, right? The Jews and the Christians, they were completely enemies towards the Muslims in those days, right? So why should you take your enemies as your good friends? As what we have been informed, Shaitan is our enemy. Why should we embrace Shaitan and let the Shaitan into our lives, right? So this is something in which you and I, we have to really ensure that we all follow what Allah has provided for us in His guidance in the Quran, right? Now, so in the last part of 120, right, verse number, Surah number 2, verse 120, right? And Allah warned us, right, that if you follow, right, if you were to follow the desires after what you have received knowledge, that means, let's say now we have discussed this, right, about not following the Jews and the Christians, not taking awliya. But if you still insist on doing that after you have received knowledge, then if anything happens to you, as Allah said, then don't blame anybody but yourself, because Allah clearly stated here, Allah would neither be your helper, your wali, or and you will not find any helpers. If Allah is the only one who will be our guardian, isn't it true? Right? The one who will guide us. Without Allah, you and I won't be in this situation where we're talking about the deen, isn't it true? Right? So if you insist on following your way, if you insist on taking any Tom, Dick, and Harry as your awliya, then if anything happens to you in terms of your deen, then you have to blame yourself. Right? Because Allah will not be there to guide you again. And this shows how serious it is. Yeah, Allah's warning to you and I. Okay. Now the next one, 1-1. الذين آتيناهم الكتاب يتلونه حق تلاوته أولئك يؤمنون به ومن يكفر به فأولئك هم الخاسرون. Those to whom we gave the book, that means the Torah, right, to the children of Israel, and the Injil, yeah, to whom we have given the book, right, recite it as it should be recited. Now, always remember, it's not about just recited. It has been explained in the Tafseer. Reciting means also to recite and to obey and to implement what was being recited, right? They are the ones that believe therein, and whosoever disbelieves in the Quran, those are they who are the losers, right? So Allah was informing you and I, those who were given the book. And this is where we know that a lot of the Torah, all the Torah and all the Injil has been changed, right? For sure. For sure, right? If you have the original Torah that has not been altered, for sure, if you have the original Injil that has not been altered, they would definitely say, yeah, to prepare for the arrival of the last messenger. Right? This has completely, yeah, been eliminated or misinterpreted, yeah, in order for them to confuse people, yeah, about the last messenger. There's no such thing as last messenger. Okay. Now, so if you ignore this message, yeah, in the Torah and Injil, then as Allah said in the last part of the verse, you'll be a loser. Right? You will not gain anything from the book. Now the book, whether it's the Torah, the Injil, or the Quran, right? These are there not for fun, yeah, not to decorate the house, not just to recite during ceremonies. And this is honestly, right? I'll be very honest with you. Sometimes I don't really like this Quran recitation competition, right? Like you have something in Malaysia, in maybe in Turkey, right? In some countries. I think for me, it's like all these competitions takes away the main function of this Quran, which is to guide, right? People would beautify their voice, right? Yes, of course, the Quran is the words of Allah. You need to beautify, you need to recite it properly, right? But when you overdo it, right, then it would lose completely the function. Then you are only interested in listening to the beautiful recitation without understanding the meaning, without pondering over the verses, and without, of course, implementing what you're supposed to implement, right? And in the end, yeah, you become a loser. And we discussed many times, brothers, right? 2020. Quran is available in every different corners of the world. As long as you go have internet, you can just Google. Everything is free, isn't it true? Everything in any languages, inshallah, you can find it, right? And by right, brothers, when this book of guidance is easily available in every corner of the world, isn't the world supposed to be more, in terms of filled with people with better iman, better understanding of the deen, and on the basis of that, yeah, people become more obedient, and Allah is always pleased with us, and therefore the Muslim countries are always flourishing, right? But that is not the case today in 2020, isn't it true? Do you agree? Right? I can only see at this moment, right, countries the only one or two countries that are fulfilling this, but alhamdulillah, they are I should say, I'm not being biased, right? One of the best countries in terms of improvements in terms of obedience to Allah. Turkey, Malaysia. That's about it. Indonesia is way off. I hate to say this, right? And inshallah, if we go next year to Indonesia with me, right, you will know what I mean, right? Only these two countries. The rest completely have sold Islam to the West or to their desire and to their lust. And you can see, because if not, right, the whole Muslim Ummah will be very prosperous, isn't it true? Right? People are locking up scholars now. People are trying to be more westernized. People are introducing Western concept, right? There are even clubs and raves in Saudi Arabia, right? There are even, and I was informed, right? Only just a few minutes walk from the Prophet's Mosque, people are doing the shisha and all this, right? It is unbelievable what's happening in this one of the richest countries in the world, right? And it is said, we're going to talk later about the Kaaba and all these. It's supposed to be a place of sanctuary, right? It's supposed to be a place where people are seeking safety. 2020, brothers, if you have been, and brother Adam would verify with me, right? 2020, one of the worst place that you have to be careful that people are not pickpocketing you is in front of the Kaaba at the Black Stone. In the early days, right, the Kaaba and the surrounding area is a very safe place, right? Surrounding, further than that, people are being kidnapped. There's a lot of violence and crime area, but that area, very safe, and as Allah promised. But somehow the 2020 is completely different, right? Yes, of course, there are many people who are worshiping Allah, but there are also quite a number who are taking this opportunity to steal your wallet, to steal your passport, to cheat you. And that happens around the Kaaba, right? And if this is happening in the broad daylight, don't you think Allah is going to be angry with us, right? And something in which we need to really understand, right, about it's not a matter of that the Quran is, coming back to the verse, right? The Quran is easily available everywhere. It's a matter of how we look at the Quran and how we reanalyze and study the Quran, right? It's not about competing who has the most beautiful voice. Then you listen to the Quran. It's not just that. It's more than that. We must treat the Quran with due respect in terms of the understanding, pondering over the verses, and inshallah with implementation. And that's so crucial for us to be able to gain the full benefit of the Quran. Right? Any questions so far? Adam, you agree with me, right? When I said about the cheatings around the Kaaba.
Yeah. Well, I used to be so naive before. I used to think, why the police are in the Kaaba? And then before I go on there, they will tell me, you know what? Because people, they have a razor and they even cut your belt, so your money is going that way in a sense.
Yes.
They stole my dad's money in
What?
Umrah.
They stole your what? Sorry.
My dad's money in Umrah.
Where?
I think when he was climbing one of the mountains.
Astaghfirullah. So isn't it so embarrassing, right? And I say this because I teach Umrah, I teach Hajj to many people, right? Isn't it ironical and embarrassing for me to give advice, right? When you go doing the tawaf on Kaaba, be careful of your money, because I mean it's like it doesn't make sense at all in the most important place Islamically to you and I have to give that advice, isn't it true? Right? I mean, don't talk about just the Kaaba, even in the mosque, right? I've lost in the central mosque, I've lost what, 2 bags, 2 shoes, and all this on different occasions, right? And I have to give advice to people who are not familiar with the mosque, especially with the new Muslims, right? Oh, don't leave don't leave your bags there. People will take it. You know, it's like the irony of it is quite irritating for me, right? I'm sure some of you may have lost things in the mosque and all this, right? And how can you explain this, right? In the most holy place to you and I, in His house, right? These things can happen when Allah has already punished those people who have cheated before, right? In the terms of which prophet was it? Prophet Shu'aib, right? In the people of Madian. And the Surah Al-Mutaffifin in the Quran itself, right? Explain clearly about the cheatings and all this that is happening, and Allah punished them, right? So if Allah were to punish them, right, as if Allah would not be able to punish us, right? So this may be so trivial to some people, but to Allah is huge, right? Because some people will say, well, what is cheating and lying? People are getting murdered, people are getting raped, people are getting all this, terrorism and all this. What is this? Brothers, if we don't understand about this, complete submission is complete submission, right? Islam is a way of life. It's not just about I pray, after I pray, I go out of the mosque and I cheat. And which is happening all over the world, all the Muslims. And we Muslims have lost completely the plot, yeah, about what Islam means. And we need to come back, yeah, in order to get Allah's blessing, right? 1.8 billion people is a lot of people, but in general, many people are still not getting Allah's blessing. So it's not about the quantity of Muslims, it's about the quality that we need to emphasize. Okay, any questions so far, brothers? Okay, now let's move on to verse number 1 to 2, right? Coming back again to children of Israel, right? يا بني إسرائيل اذكروا نعمتي التي أنعمت عليكم وأني فضلتكم على العالمين. Right, this verse was repeated, I think from verse number 47, if I'm not mistaken, right? Repeated again, right? In this verse number 122, right? In which the meaning, O children of Israel, remember my favor which I bestowed upon you, and that I preferred you to the alamin in those times, right? Now, no way, right? On the basis of the numerous disobedience, again, as I said, from verse 40, and you know Al-Baqarah, the verse is not short. They are not short, isn't it? The verses, right? They're very long verses in Al-Baqarah, right? So until 1 to 2, Allah is still addressing the children of Israel. It shows clearly how important that you and I, we must study them, and we must, in a sense that whatever things that happen to them and whatever things that they do, we have to try and learn some lessons from them. Okay, so now in this case, Allah did remind them, right, about the blessings that Allah has given them. And at that point of time, they were preferred over all the other alamin. So in terms of other people in China in those days, brothers, other people in were there people in China living in those days?
Of course.
In India, yes. So, but of all these people in China, in India, in Europe, whatever it is, right, in England, right, the children of Israel, they were preferred, right, over all the other people, right? So they have this strong, so much so that, as you know, right, Allah gave them what? Allah gave them free sweets, right, truffles on the ground, right? The truffles, remember, manna, right, is, according to some narrations, they're like snowdrops, right? If you take these snowdrops, right, but you can only keep them for one day. The next day it will get rotten, right? keep them and then put them in under sweets, like very sweet, right? And they're enough to fill you up. This is called manna, right? Or truffles. Salwa is, again, if not enough with this, then Allah give them the birds for free. Isn't it true? Right? Whenever they go around, they were covered with shades of clouds. So all these were the blessings that Allah gave them because Allah preferred them, right? In general, right? And I hope you and I are among these people. So for example, right? If your mother, right, gives you this, many things, right? Then you would treat your mother in a more loving way, isn't it true? By obeying your mother, right? By treating her well, taking care of her when she gets old and all this. So similarly, when Allah gave these people this, by right, their reaction should be more obedience to Allah, isn't it true? But we have seen all this more than 80 verses, right? Completely different reactions, despite the fact that they were given a lot of blessings from Allah. Okay, in the next verse, 1, 2, 3. واتقوا يوما لا تجزي نفس عن نفس شيئا ولا يقبل منها عدل ولا ينفعها شفاعة ولا هم ينصرون. And fear the day when no person shall avail another, nor shall compensation be accepted from him, nor shall intercession be of use to him, nor shall they be helped. So Allah, as Allah warned them, the children of Israel, to fear this day of judgment, when there's completely no compensations, right? No helpers, right? Same thing Allah is warning you and I, right? So under their judgment, right, there will be a person who will want to ransom everything that is on the earth. Allah will say, no way, right? And it was given in the hadith, Muhammad said, right, that these people will be said on their judgment, right? You want to give up all this, but on the earth, when you were given the opportunity, you were only asked to believe, right, and to follow, and yet you refuse to do so. Right? So on the day of judgment, nothing else can help us, right? Only when Allah wills, with His permission, then we can get intercession, we can get help from various sources. But if Allah said no, means no. Right? Everything is upon Allah's will and Allah's permission. Okay? Now 1, 2, 4. So we are going to come across Ibrahim alayhi salam now, right? His stories. I think this is the first one. Right? Yeah, I think the first one from Al-Baqarah, right? Ibrahim. وَإِذِ ابْتَلَى إِبْرَاهِيمَ رَبُّهُ بِكَلِمَاتٍ فَأَتَمَّهُنَّ قَالَ إِنِّي جَاعِلُكَ لِلنَّاسِ إِمَامًا قَالَ وَمِنْ ذُرِّيَّتِي قَالَ لَا يَنَالُ عَهْدِ الظَّالِمِينَ. And remember when the Lord of Ibrahim, that is Allah, tried him with certain commands, which he fulfilled. Now, Allah asked you and I to recall, right, how Ibrahim, he is literally called the Khalilullah, intimate friend of Allah. That's why until today, subhanallah, you and I are always repeating and sending blessings for him and his family, isn't it true? Because of the numerous tests that he faced, and yet he was able, with Allah's guidance, of course, to overcome this test. So what test did Allah give to Ibrahim alayhi salam right from the beginning? What test? Anybody?
When he was told to leave his children and
Yes, but let's go in terms of chronology, right? Right at the beginning, right? Where did he grow up? He grew up in a place full of idol worshippers, isn't it true?
Yes,
right?
yes.
And even his father was the maker of the idols, right? This is a big test, right? In a sense that you and I, alhamdulillah, we have this Quran, we have, you have your online now, inshallah, the religious classes, right? You have a Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam as guidance, right, to guide us. We have the religious books, right? A lot of things that you and I need to be actively searching, of course, for guidance, right? But for him, Where's the guidance? Nothing at all, except Allah, isn't it true? That was why, despite all these tests, right? Then he was searching for the truth, isn't it true? Right? He was searching. Oh, remember what else in the Quran about? He was looking for God, for the sign of Allah, right? He looked at the stars, he looked at the moon, he looked at the sun, and then with Allah's guidance, he concluded this cannot be Allah, right? Because they disappeared. How can the one who's looking after you and I disappeared? And when they disappeared, how can I maintain myself, right? And so this is a big test, right? What should you do? And this is a question in which I know some of my students are facing, right? What should you do if you are living in a household like Ibrahim alayhi salam, right? Where people are not practicing, right? And you are facing all this hatred, even from your own families. What should you do, brothers?
Can you repeat the question again, Ustad?
The question was, right? Again, I have encountered from my students, right? As you know, I have a lot of revert students and all this, right? Live in a household, whether Muslims or not Muslims, right? Mother, father may not be practicing. I mean, it's quite common, sorry to say this, right? People in Albania, people in even Turkey, right? Not practicing, right? And worse still, right? They don't allow you to practice, and you're living in the same household as them. What must you do?
Leave the household and be distant with them.
Yes. Who's that?
Me, Khalifa.
Oh, Khalifa, yes. And I think this is quite important, isn't it true, right? I mean, a lot of people came to me for advice, right? I think I did advise them this, right? It depends on how much you can take it, because after all, inshallah, right? You do want, well, even though your parents may hate you for being a practicing Muslim, right? You do want eventually that your parents to be with you in Jannah, isn't it true, right? So my answer to my question would be, right? It depends whether you're able to be patient and you're able to continue with the purpose of life, which is to worship Allah, right? If despite all these tests from your family members, you are able still to prayers, right? It doesn't affect your khushu', right? I would advise anybody, right, to remain there for the moment. But if it causes you to not be able to pray properly, right, you face constant abuse from your family, then the only option for you it is to leave the household. Which examples do we have so far in the Quran about this? Anybody? Brothers, what examples did Allah have in the Quran? If you cannot practice, then you need to leave. The people of the cave is neutral, right? They sacrifice their family members, the comfort of the home in order to be able to worship Allah, right? Even Muhammad SAW and the people of the early Muslims in Mecca, right? They did do the hijrah, right? In order to be able to practice Islam in a better place in Medina where they can actually freely, right, worship Allah without the being mocked at or without being the worst part, being abused and tortured, right? We also have even Musa alayhi salam, right? Yes, he killed the person, but eventually when he went from Egypt to Madian, right, for about 10 years, right? And in that process, when he met his future father-in-law, the future father-in-law was saying, yes, the place that you came from is evil, right? And therefore it was best for him to leave the place, right? So if London, right, becomes such a place where we cannot practice Islam or cannot commit to a purpose of life, cannot fulfill the purpose of life, then you and I, we have no option but to leave this place, isn't it true? Agree?
Yes. But it's Ardullah wasi'in, Sheikh. Like Allah place is wide, isn't it? Like His
Yes,
earth.
precisely. So I cannot say on the day of judgment, brothers, right? Why aren't you not praying 5 times a day? Oh, I can't, yeah, because I'll be, I'll be, people will look at me, I will get abused and all this. I can't say to Allah on the day of judgment like this, right? Because the whole world is spread out for you and I to migrate from one place or another in order to practice Islam. And this concept must be ingrained in our mind, right? If I can't practice Islam, if they're closing the mosque here, if they are, abusing the Muslims and all this, and I know that I cannot, my wife and I are not safe here to practice Islam properly with the hijab and all this, that's it. This is not the place for me, right? At no time must we continue to live this place just because, oh, I'm in London, okay, there's a Queen, there is this Big Ben, there is huge place, opportunity for me to work and all this, right? Always remember, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. Surah number 51, verse number 56. Allah said, I do not create jinn and mankind except that they should worship alone. In Surah number 67, verse number 2, الَّذِي خَلَقَ الْمَوْتَ وَالْحَيَاةَ لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا. Right? Allah created death and life for what? So He can test you and I, which of us are the best in deeds. If we are not able to perform our obligations of worshiping Allah, that's it. This is not the place for you and I to live, right? So for me personally, right, if I were to be living in France and all these places where they ban the hijab and all this, and I can't travel around with the hijab and all this, that's it. That's not the place for me to stay, isn't it true? Do you agree?
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
Ustad, do you get more ajr when you're living in these countries and you're practicing?
It depends, right? But make sure that the way it's practiced is the same as if you are in a Muslim country, in the sense that you need to, well, what is called jihad, right? That sacrifice, right? That's jihad of the nafs, that you need to struggle. And if you were to able to do this, then you get the reward. But if it has compromised your prayer, right? So for example, oh brothers, I can't even go to the mosque and all because of this, right? I'll be abused, I'll be kidnapped and all this, then there's no there's no reward in a sense. Then you have to leave, pack your bags and leave the country, right? And I'll be very honest with you, right? One of the reasons why I leave Singapore, one of the main reasons why I leave Singapore, because I was trapped in a world of materialism that I could simply cannot take it, and I lost that. It's like when you are in that world that everybody is comparing money to material wealth and success and all this, right? You would lose, and once you realize this at a later stage, that few years you're in that kind of environment, you have lost a lot of time. Brothers, life is so short. It's very transient in this world. We need to treat this world like a stranger. If you are caught in that world, right, in that web, like a spider web, that difficult to disentangle yourself, then you need to quickly realize and get out of this place, right? I was working 7 days a week as a dentist, as a dental surgeon in Singapore, right? And that is what I do most of the time. And this is something in which it really, what do you call it, caused me to think. I mean, is this really my purpose of life, right? To earn money. Yes, alhamdulillah, I earn a lot of money, but that's not really it, isn't it? When your spiritual development goes down and down and down, because simply, everybody is doing the same thing, right? So, are we given a free will to do what we want, brothers?
Yes.
Yes, right? As I said, we are given that short amount of time to live in this world in order to collect everything that we have in order to show to Allah, this is it. This is my deeds, right? I've done the best that I can. Therefore, I implore you, I beg you, right, to allow me to enter Jannah. Is it true? This is what we're trying to do, isn't it true? Right? If you have not done your best, brothers, for whatever reasons, right, then you only have to blame yourself, isn't it true? That is why even in terms of when your brothers or sisters are asking me about their marriage, right? Should I stay with this person or that person? My answer is very, very simple, right? By staying with this person, does it increase your iman? Does it help you to fulfill the purpose of life? If not, that's it. That person is not worth to be living with. Do you agree with me?
I would say praise Tikhara.
It is, of course, right? But if you know that husband is not practicing, right? Some people are drinking and all this, right? And people are not doing proper in terms of the deed and all this. By being with this person, your deed, and brothers, you and I know, right? When our iman goes down and down, only we will know, right? When we can't have khushu in our prayer, everything is a mess, and it does happen to quite a number of people, right? And alhamdulillah, yes, you do istikhara, right? But and if you know the signs that your iman is not getting better and better, then that's it. You need to cut the string loose and then go to another place in which, or go to another separate from this person in order to fulfill the purpose of life. Nothing is more important in life than to please Allah. Do you agree? Right? So again, in the famous verse in which I always quote, right? It is in Surah what? In Surah number 9, in verse number 24. Isn't it true? Right? In Surah number 9, in verse number 24, right? Allah directly inform us. Say, if your fathers, your sons, your brothers, your wives, your kindred, the wealth that you have gained, the commerce in which you fear declined, and the dwellings in which you delight are dearer to you than Allah and His Messenger, and striving hard in His cause, then wait until Allah brings about His decision or His torment. And Allah do not guide the people who are the fasiqun, or the rebellious people. Okay, so always remember, brothers, we are given a free will to do what we want, right? The test comes on the left, test comes on the right, and we need to ask Allah to guide us through all these tests, right? And we must move forward, right? And so that whatever happens, right, we need to understand, I need to pray on time, I need to do this without any excuses, right? If anything distracts us from this purpose of life, we need to get rid of it quickly. As I said, life is very short. I might die tomorrow, some of you might die next week. And how do we explain to Allah? We get distracted with life. Okay? Any questions? Okay, so come back to the story about Ibrahim alayhis salam in Surah number 2 in verse number 1 to 4, right? So Allah tested Ibrahim alayhis salam first. So with what, as I said, with an environment full of idols, isn't it true, right? Father will make up the idols. And alhamdulillah, he was able to withstand all these tests, and he became even stronger in the belief, isn't it true? Because he looked around and he looked at Allah's signs, and he actually opened up his eyes to see, where is Allah? How do I react? How do I worship Allah? Instead of just taking this idol worshipping just blindly and follow blindly, which many people are doing it, right? So this is the first thing that Ibrahim alayhis salam had a test when he was young, right? Secondly, what are the tests that Ibrahim faced from Allah? He didn't have any children, right? Until I think it was 90 I think wife Sarah was 99 when the angels came and announced that she would have a son. Isn't it true, right? So this is a lot of tests for him. And sometimes, brothers, you need to know that the tests that we face, actually, sometimes to us it may be very bad, but it's a lot of hikmah, a lot of wisdom, right? That's why we got this test. And we always need to make things positive, right? So in a sense that we don't just blame it on Allah, right? Have this negative opinion of Allah, which shaitan has always come to me. What's the point you are praying, and what's the point of you, doing all the dhikr, attending all these online classes? You're still like that. You have no improvement in your money. You got no money. You cannot feed your children. Subhanallah, all these things are coming from shaitan, right? To tell you and I to go on a different route, right? So we need to overcome all this, inshallah. Right? So when things happen to us, there's a lot of hikmah. I find that, subhanAllah, with COVID-19, in Ramadan, I couldn't find a better Ramadan than this year, subhanAllah, in terms of personal development, right? Trying to memorize more Quran, right? Trying to make the best of the worst situation where you cannot go to the mosques are closed. And this itself, right? You just need to take a positive or the negative. Right? Instead of mourning, oh, when is the mosque going to be open and all this, right? Everything has a time, and only Allah will set the time of when we actually can go to the mosque, inshallah. Okay. What are the things that Ibrahim alayhi salam said? As you said, Adam, that he got a wife, right? In fact, he got two, right? How did Sarah come in? Sorry, first wife was Sarah. How did Hajar came into the picture? What was the story, brothers?
It was about the king. And
so what happened to the king? Aren't we curious to know how did Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam had all this come up from Ismail and all this? How did it came about? There was a king, right, who was interested in Sarah. Remember?
Yeah. He had a problem every time he tried to.
Yeah. So first of all, Ibrahim said, right? Okay, if the king asks you about me, you must tell him I'm your brother, because if the king knew that Ibrahim alayhi salam was the husband of Sarah, he would be prosecuted, right? Firstly, right? Secondly, and this is with Allah's power and Allah's might and Allah's will, right? Sarah, every time that so Sarah was given no choice, right? It was given to the king. Right? Every time the king was trying to approach her, he became epileptic, literally, right? So he made an attempt 3 times, and he became very scared, because every time he was about to approach her, he became epileptic, and he concluded, that she was evil and she had all this sihr and all this, right? And immediately she was returned back to Ibrahim, as a token of appreciation, he gave Hajar to Ibrahim alayhi salam, right, as a servant, right? And as you know, right, 2 women, difficult to live in a place, and this was Allah's command that Hajar, at that time Ismail was born, right? Hajar and Ismail was asked by Allah to be brought to this place, which is now known as the Kaaba area, right? And can you imagine, brothers, no children for so many years, and suddenly Allah commanded you, well, now you should take your children and your child and your wife, dump them in the middle of the desert, and that's it. That's all my command, right? That was why when Hajar was asking Ibrahim alayhi salam, why did you leave us in this place? He couldn't answer. How can he answer, right? But Hajar was also very smart, right? And she said, was it Allah who ordered you to leave us in this place? And he said, yes. And she said, if Allah ordered you, commanded you to do that, then we trust Allah. And this is a trust in which is difficult to have, isn't it true, brothers? Can you imagine, bro, if when you were small, right, your dad decided to leave you in the middle of, remember in those days, desert means desert, right? There's no air condition, there's no tent, there's no trees, just a desert in the middle of nowhere. Dump you there, you'd be very upset, isn't it, with your parents, right? And now, right, she was left with the son. No food except what they have, the dates and some water. That's about it, right? So he passed this test, alhamdulillah, of course, right? And in the end, it becomes the ritual of the Hajj or the Umrah, in which, he got to go to Safa and Marwa 7 times to look for water and all this, right? So this is second test, third test. Next is about Allah tested him again. Sorry, I skipped just now, but when he was thrown into the fire, right? Because he broke all the idols, isn't it true? Except the biggest one. And then the people were so unhappy with him that they threw him in the fire. And of course, right, it's a huge test. And he survived with Allah's will, that the fire did not turn hot on him, right? And then after that, he was, after leaving the son, Ismail and Hajar, in the middle of the desert, he came back again, right? And he had a dream, right? He got to sacrifice Ismail. And again, subhanAllah, right? After having no children for a while, Allah ordered him to kill his own son, right? So test after test after test of Ibrahim alayhi salam. That's why he was called the intimate friend of Allah, Khalilullah, right? And that's why, alhamdulillah, you and I are always sending blessings on him, right? In our tashahud, the second part of tashahud.
I'll ask a question.
Yes.
How did he know that dream to kill his son wasn't deceived from the shaitan?
He doesn't know, right? But for prophets, right, whenever they have a dream, it's a revelation. They must follow.
Okay.
So you got no choice, right? But Chan, if you have a dream now, please don't follow.
No.
Right? So for him, he doesn't know. I mean, for of all he knows, right, he was commanded by Allah, right, to slaughter the son. That's it. And he was following exactly to the minutest detail, right? There was even a narration that he was, he couldn't see, and the father and the son was advising him, why don't you close your eyes? If you open your eyes, you cannot see. You cannot do it. You cannot perform your obligations to sacrifice me, right? And he did just that, right? A few narrations came after that. For example, the knife just couldn't cut, and Allah ordered him to replace the son with a animal, right, for sacrifice. Okay. Mm-hmm. Any questions? So test after test after test after test. That is why, subhanallah, when Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam met, when Isra Mi'raj, when the journey from Mecca to Jerusalem and up to the different levels of skies, he met different prophets, right? Where was Ibrahim alayhi salam? Which level of the skies? Brothers. The first level, I think he went Adam alayhi salam. Second level was Isa alayhi salam. Which level is the highest? Seventh level of heavens or the skies. He met Ibrahim alayhi salam, wasn't it true, right? And where is Ibrahim alayhi salam now, as we are speaking now?
In Barzakh, no, Jannah.
Doing what?
Play with the children, isn't it?
Yeah, he's literally looking after the children who died, before they reach puberty. Either the children who died, or even when the mother's womb, he's literally looking after them, right? And every day, right, Allah would tell them, enter paradise, the Jannah, because they're innocent, right? And they said, no, we only enter paradise when we hold our parents' hands, right? So every day, so he's assigned, right, to play with all those children at the gates of Jannah. Okay, so So these are the tests of Ibrahim alayhi salam, right? So coming back again to Surah number 2 in verse number, in verse number 1 to 4. Okay, 1 to 4. And remember when the Lord of Ibrahim tried him with certain commands, with all the tests, right? Which he fulfilled. So he successfully passed all the tests, test after test after test. Alhamdulillah, right? He passed the test. And Allah said to him, verily, I'm going to make you an imam, a leader. Right? That is why, brothers, as you know, Ibrahim is at the very top. Isn't it true? From Ibrahim, we have Isaac or Ishaq, and then branch to all the prophets, Solomon, Musa alayhi salam, and all this, right? Yeah, Yusuf and all this, Yaqub, of course, all right? And from the other side, for Ibrahim alayhi salam, we have the Ismail alayhi salam and Muhammad alayhi salam. So he's right at the top, right? In terms of the lineage, okay? Allah said, I'm going to make you an imam for mankind. Now, Ibrahim alayhi salam was trying to bargain or trying to ask Allah, well, if I'm the imam, then make my offspring also the imams. What did Allah say? My covenant doesn't include the dhalimun. That means Allah is implying that, well, your offspring, not all will be among the righteous. Some of them, right, will not be righteous, and it cannot be the leaders of the people. Okay, so this is quite important because our fate in Jannah, the initial entry in Jannah, brothers, depends on your effort and my effort. Isn't it true? Right? Individual effort. Then you'll be rewarded in Jannah. It doesn't depend on the parents. The parents' role is only important at the second stage of Jannah. Isn't it true? Right? So the first stage entry into Jannah, everybody need to equally up the game and get Allah's mercy. Isn't it true? If we don't get Allah's mercy, you are finished, right? So we talked about, or the Quran talked about the son of the Prophet Nuh alayhi salam, right? Who was swept away, right? Didn't get Allah's mercy, right? We talked about, Allah talked in the Quran about the wives of Nuh alayhi salam and Lut alayhi salam, right? The two of them will be in hellfire, right? We talked about the Prophet's uncle, right? Where would he be? He would be the best place in hellfire, right? The best place means stand on the stove and the brains will boil. This is the most luxurious place. You cannot find a better place in hellfire than this. This is the most, or the least punishment, right? Is standing on the stove and the brains will boil. And this was when Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he wanted to intercede for the uncle, right, Abu Talib. So the Sahaba was quite curious. Intercession, does it mean that he will be enter paradise? They said no, right, because the father died as a mushrikun, right, as a disbeliever, right? So intercession means to be saved from the worst place in hellfire to the best place in hellfire, right, in terms of the intensity of punishment and all this. And subhanAllah, right? We also know that doesn't matter that Ibrahim a.s. was or is the Allah's intimate friend. Allah did not guide his father, Azar, right, who was the maker of the idols, right? In fact, on the day of judgment, we know from hadith that Ibrahim a.s. would see the father being kicked into hellfire in the form of a hyena. Isn't it true? Right? So this is it, right? So that the initial entry into Jannah must be upon our individual effort. And look at how the Pharaoh, subhanAllah, right? How his wife, Asiya, turned out to be one of the best women, isn't it true? Right? So it doesn't matter who, as long as you have Allah's mercy, fulfill all the obligations, then you're able to enter Jannah with his mercy, of course, right? But if no mercy, no Jannah. However,
Sorry.
right up. Sorry.
Bilal,
Yes.
who are you talking about? Like, who was the one of the best women?
Asiya.
Asia. Okay.
Asiya was the Pharaoh's wife. Isn't it true? Right?
Okay.
And the Pharaoh was the worst person, one of the worst person. He will be at the lowest level of hellfire. So all I'm trying to say, right, is like everybody is responsible for their own deeds, right? You're not responsible to of your father's deeds or your mother's deeds when they are not practicing. You have your own deeds to take care of. But once you have entered Jannah, then it's a different ball game, right? Why do I say this? If your parents or if your sister or your brother are in a higher level of Jannah and you are in a lower level, then Allah's mercy, Allah will reunite you to be elevated to whoever is highest in your family. Right? Where did Allah say this? Brothers, in Surah number 52, right? In verse number 21, right? So let's look at 52, verse number 21, right? In which Allah promised you and I this, right? وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَاتَّبَعَتْهُمْ ذُرِّيَّتُهُمْ بِإِيمَانٍ أَلْحَقْنَا بِهِمْ ذُرِّيَّتَهُمْ وَمَا أَلَتْنَاهُمْ مِنْ عَمَلِهِمْ مِنْ شَيْءٍ كُلُّ امْرِئٍ بِمَا كَسَبَ رَهِينٌ. And those who believe and those whose offspring follow them in faith, to them shall we join their offspring, and we shall not decrease the reward of the deeds in anything. Right? Every person is a pledge for that which he has earned. So, repeat one more time, initial entry to Jannah is upon your deeds and my deeds individually. But once we enter, inshallah, that level may also depend, then your family members may play a part. Right? So if your family members, one of them is in Jannatul Firdaus, everybody will be in Jannatul Firdaus. And this is amazing, isn't it? It's Allah's mercy. Allah will join us together because there's no such thing as sadness in Jannah. I wouldn't be, for example, I won't be looking for where's my sister? My sister is not here, you know. So everybody will join in the same level, and this shows Allah's mercy. Okay. Now let's continue with this last part of this verse, right? In Surah number 2, in verse number, Surah number 2, verse number 125 and 126, inshallah. Okay, we're going to finish off, inshallah. 2, 125, 126. وَإِذْ جَعَلْنَا الْبَيْتَ مَثَابَةً لِلنَّاسِ وَأَمْنًا وَاتَّخِذُوا مِن مَّقَامِ إِبْرَاهِيمَ مُصَلًّى وَعَهِدْنَا إِلَىٰ إِبْرَاهِيمَ وَإِسْمَاعِيلَ أَن طَهِّرَ بَيْتِيَ لِلطَّائِفِينَ وَالْعَاكِفِينَ وَالرُّكَّعِ السُّجُودِ. And remember, when the Lord of Ibrahim, right? Sorry. Let me see. And remember when Ibrahim said, "My Lord, make this city a place of security and provide its people with fruits, such of them as believe in Allah and in the last day." He answered, "As for him who disbelieves, I shall leave him in contentment for a while, then I shall compel him to the torment of the fire, and worse indeed is that destination." So Ibrahim alayhi salam, subhanallah, he has made a dua to Allah, right? To make that place, right? To make the place, sorry, I think I've missed one verse, right? I remember when we made the house of Kaaba, sorry. I remember when in 125, right? Remember when we made the house of the Kaaba, right? A place of resort for mankind and a place of safety. So as I said just now, Kaaba in those days is really a safe place, right? You would not get any kidnappings around there. Further outside, yes, but once you come to a place, so much security, so much peace, right? And take you the people of Maqam Ibrahim for as a place to pray, right? So what is Maqam Ibrahim? Maqam Ibrahim is the footsteps of Ibrahim alayhi salam, right? If we go to the Mecca, to the Kaaba, you can see beside the black stone there is this place where Ibrahim alayhi would step on this piece of gold or material to build the Kaaba. Or according to sources, the place where he was stepping on was from Jannah itself, right? So he went around and around. He was stepping on it in order to build the Kaaba. And until today, you can see the footsteps of Ibrahim at this maqam, right? Maqam means like a place, right? We can see his footsteps. But of course, with the people, as usual, there's a lot of shirk going on. People are wiping the head while, doing all the kissing the place and all this. There's no at all evidence that we should do that. Okay? As a place of prayer, right? And we commanded Ibrahim and Ismail that they should purify my house, and for those who are circumambulating it or staying or bowing or prostrating themselves, right? They have been commanded in those days to purify means to get rid of all the idols, that they should only worship Allah alone, right? To purify the place. Okay, 126. And remember when Ibrahim said, "My Lord, make this city a place of security and provide its people with fruits, such of them as believe in Allah and the last day." He answered, "As for him who disbelieves, I shall leave him in contentment for a while, then I shall compel him to the torment of the fire, and worse indeed is that destination." So Ibrahim has made dua to Allah, right? To bless the place, right? To fill the place, to make the place secure, safe, right? And also for those people to be contented, right, in the place and in the forms of in the acts of worship, right? But Allah did say in the last part in verse number 126, right? As for those who disbelieve, so Allah said, yes, I'm going to do all this, but if anyone were still to disbelieve after all this, right? Yes, you can remain in this world, right? In the short transient world, very contented with what you have, with your money, with your car, with your Lamborghini, with all the things that you have, right? But at the end, right, the hereafter, the fire is waiting for you. Yeah, and worse indeed is that destination. So we actually given a choice. Brothers, Allah works like this, right? Remember, in Surah number 2, verse number 256, La ikraha fid din, there's no compulsion in the deen. None of us are forced, right, to pray 5 times a day. None of us are forced to, pay the zakat, right? But there's a big but, as you know, right? It's all about accountability, right? It's all about submission to Allah. Right? If we submit to Allah with all our hearts and our minds, then we see the reward on the hereafter. The problem now, brothers, is that many people find this, right? When the reward is not tangible, I cannot see the reward of my morning prayer, or my tahajjud, or my fasting, right? I can't see the reward now. And therefore, it makes people so lazy. We human beings, we always want to see the reward first, right? Or at the end of the month, check the bank account, make sure the money comes in from our boss. This is our hard work. We want that reward immediately. But subhanAllah, the reward of the hereafter is something is so unimaginable in terms of the pleasure that we have. Remember, we discussed before, in Jannah, a piece of, or an area, just the length of a whip, just this length, is better than everything in the earth. Right? This is something in which we need to aim for things in which, even though we have not seen it, we know Allah described about Jannah in many verses in the Quran. We have not seen hellfire. We know that it will happen for those who disobey Allah. Isn't it true? How do you know there is COVID-19? Can you see COVID-19? No, you cannot see COVID-19, but you know that people are wearing masks, right? People are washing their hands for how many minutes? For 20 seconds, right? And people are doing all this, even though you cannot see the virus. And this is something in which we need to really apply this, isn't it true, right? We know hellfire is there waiting for those who disobeyed Allah or who did not get His mercy. Paradise is there waiting for you and I, inshallah, right? If we work hard enough and we gain Allah's mercy. But the thing is that Allah given you and I this opportunity to think. It's not enforced upon you and me. We have a free will, right? the more we think or we are grateful to Allah, then we would want to do more things to submit to Allah, right? We have to be grateful to Allah, firstly, that Allah given us Islam. Secondly, that we are still given the time to prepare to face Allah, right? I'm sure you know there are many people, let's say COVID-19, right? 43,000 people died within the last 3 months because of COVID-19, right? No opportunity yet, or no time at all given by Allah, right, to prepare. But we, alhamdulillah, we are given the time to prepare. Which journey that you want to take? Do you still want to enjoy the transient life in this world, ignoring in the hereafter, or you want to balance yourself, right? That means make sure that the purpose of life is complete and fulfilled by you and I, so that we are able to worship Allah in the best of manners. The choice is up to you and I to undertake, right? But always remember, as Allah said in the last verse that was revealed in the Quran. What's the last verse again, brothers? Which surah? What's the last verse in the Quran was revealed? Last verse. Surah number Al-Baqarah, right? Verse number 281. وَاتَّقُوا يَوْمًا تُرْجَعُونَ فِيهِ إِلَى اللَّهِ ثُمَّ تُوَفَّى كُلُّ نَفْسٍ مَا كَسَبَتْ وَهُمْ لَا يُظْلَمُونَ. And be afraid of the day when you shall be brought back to Allah. Then every person shall be paid for what he has earned, and they shall not be dealt with unjustly, right? We need to take this verse into consideration because everything will be seen on the day of judgment, right? And it's up to you and I now, while we are still alive, when we are still healthy, inshallah, to try to work hard in order to get a place hereafter, in Jannah. Because when the angel of death comes, that's it, game over. Whatever things that we have supposed to prepare should have been prepared. There's no point to cry over spilled milk. There's no point to regret what you have not done because we have been given a lot of opportunities, right, to do whatever things that we can in order to face Allah, right? Any questions so far? Surah number 2, verse number 281, right? The last verse that was revealed, right? And after that, I think Prophet Muhammad passed away, I think about 80 something days after this revelation. Okay? Any questions? Right, I hope today's tafsir it will help you and I to really understand the Quran and implement what Allah has commanded us to do. Right, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continue to shower us with His mercy, with His guidance, with iman and taqwa, so that all of us are able to meet Him, right, fully prepared, yeah, in the day of judgment. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive us, you and I, for our shortcomings, for our transgressions, for our numerous disobedience to Him. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala increase our knowledge. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us good health in order for us to prepare to face Him in a day of judgment, to prepare with our daily deeds in order to show to Him on the day of judgment. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant you and our family members Jannatul Firdaus. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika asyhadu an la ilaha illa anta wa astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa assalamu alal mursalin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Jazakumullah khair.
Walaikum salam.
Inshallah, we'll see you. We'll see you next week. We see you tomorrow, inshallah, yeah, at about 6 o'clock. Assalamu alaikum.
Inshallah.